Welcome to Dental All Stars. I'm Alex Nottingham, founder and CEO of All Star Dental Academy. And with me is Mike Paton, the former visionary at EOS Worldwide and host of EOS Leader podcast. And our topic is the visionary and integrator. Please welcome Mike Paton.
Thanks, Alex. Great to be here.
And you go by Paton, so we'll continue to refer you as Paton. And I also have our integrator, Shelly Van Epps, also our VP of Business Development and Lead Mastery Coach. So we're going to have some fun here. So let's start with some definitions so we're all kind of on the same page. So we did a wonderful podcast in the past, a few months ago with you, Paton, about EOS. We go into detail about that. I'll put a link to that podcast. But just to kind of give us a quick overview of EOS, and then we can go into my first question for you is, what is this visionary and integrator and why is it important?
Yeah. The quick overview of EOS is it's a business operating system, a way of creating a crystal clear vision, establishing clarity of roles and executing on that vision with discipline and accountability, and building a more cohesive, functional, open and honest team so that everybody's working together to achieve that vision. And the visionary integrator duo is the leadership pair that tends to rise to the top of the accountability chart, which is an EOS tool in an entrepreneurial company. The visionary, I would define almost always the founding entrepreneur, majority owner of the organization. Not always, but almost always. Visionaries are great builders, creators, disruptors, challengers of the status quo, always asking what's next, imagining a brighter future than the present. I like to say visionaries invented trains. Integrators are people who enjoy keeping the trains running on time. They drive accountability in the trenches. They're totally comfortable with difficult conversations. They're data or logic driven rather than idea driven. And they are great partners to visionaries because a powerful visionary integrator duo working together can imagine what's possible, prioritize the right activities to execute on what's possible and not overcommit the resources of the organization, and make great things happen over time. Now,
so the visionary integrator, very succinct the way you laid it out. So typically it is the owner of the organization. Now, one of the things that we often get sidetracked on when I talk about it is, am I a visionary? Am I an integrator? And then we found a third one, which is the artist or the tactician, using the E-Myth verbiage, like somebody who's not an integrator or not the visionary. How does that work? How do you identify yourself or an organization who's what? And because sometimes, like, for example, and I'll put one other thing as well, like Shelly will say, well, I come up with ideas sometimes and I can appreciate the vision. How do you work that?
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack in that conversation. So let's just start at the top. So first of all, visionary and integrator are two seats on an accountability chart of a company running on EOS. That doesn't mean nobody else on the leadership team is ever allowed to or able to come up with visionary ideas, nor does it mean the visionary is incapable of executing in the trenches when that's necessary. Okay? These are job descriptions, not personality profiles per se. Now, the one seat on an accountability chart that morphs itself to the unique attributes of its owner is the visionary seat. And I have seen lots of different kinds of visionaries. I've seen visionaries who have high levels of startup business acumen. They like to start businesses from scratch and incubate them until they've proven a concept, and then they get bored and don't want to have anything to do with the business again. Okay. But they aren't artisans or craftspeople or passionate about the thing they're doing. And then I've seen visionaries who are artisans, craftspeople, and passionate about the thing they're doing, but they don't have any business acumen or they don't have a lot of business acumen. They prefer not to be business people. You know, I can't tell you how many visionaries have said to me, oh my God, if I have to look at another spreadsheet, Peyton, I'm going to lose my mind. And so what we're trying to encourage people in a fast-moving entrepreneurial company to do is know thyself, know what the organization needs, and put yourself in the seat where you're going to add the most value, leverage your God-given skill set and your experiential acquired abilities, and deliver real value to the organization. And visionaries do that in the visionary seat, and integrators do that in the integrator seat. And there is some crossover of responsibility from time to time.
Where I see the biggest issues for our target market being dentists is that the dentist may not claim or really own the visionary seat or even know that they're a visionary. Because I didn't even know I was a visionary. I was CEO. I was doing a lot of the things that visionaries did. And because I have a business background, I know that I accept the vision, I do these things, but it wasn't as clear as you guys have made it at EOS. And certainly didn't know about an integrator. I just think I need a general manager or something. And then also with dentists, they also lack, they may think their office manager is this integrator or the manager gets it done, but often it's not. It's another thing where they have to put out fires. And then on top of that, they have issues with delegation and so on. So they're a bit of a mess on, and obviously what you're talking about is if they, I would say for a dentist, if they embrace being the visionary, because you're saying they're the founder and we all have different qualities, they have to embrace it because they're the ones that were responsible for it and they created that. And then hopefully they can cultivate or find an integrator, which I'll ask you later how you do that, to be able to put it into action. So I think an important question in this, and you can comment on all this, whatever I talked about, is what's the difference between an integrator and a manager?
Well, and I'll start with that last part of that question. A famous quotation used by many, many visionaries, including me way too many times, and I'm a little sheepish about it, is I'm great at managing people who don't need to be managed, which is really kind of not a thing. And Shelley's nodding her head. Yeah, I've heard that before. So almost everybody, we're humans, right? We need some management. And in fact, integrators who are really good integrators are just as adept at managing the energies and the skill sets of their visionaries as they are the people who report to them in the organization. The first part of your question, though, is, is it possible for somebody who founded a dental practice or any other business for that matter to be neither a visionary nor an integrator, is kind of the way I read that question. And the answer is absolutely yes. I think my third or fourth client was in the visionary seat for a couple quarters, and he came into a session one day and he walked up to the whiteboard. We had the accountability chart up there because somebody had teed up that we needed to talk about structure. And he just erased the visionary seat. He says, you guys have been putting me here because I founded this company, but all these 5 roles in the seat, being the face of the company, thought leadership is that bullet. Culture, big ideas. I don't do any of that. I'm a coder. This was a technology company. I'm a coder. I'm one of the best coders on the planet, particularly in this specialty. So I want to sit in a seat that says coder, right? I want to do code. That's what I want to do for the rest of my life. That's the artisan or the practitioner model. And he didn't need to be a member of the leadership team. So he left the leadership team. He ended up in what we call the owner's box in EOS, engaged in regular meetings with the integrator, keeping him up to date about what's going on with the health of his business. But in the business, his role was a member of the development team that got thrown the most vexing problems and the most complex coding requirements. And he was happy as a clam and really good at his job. And he and his integrator business partner, they were co-owners of this company, ultimately sold the business for a really nice multiple, and he's still coding.
That's really,
that is totally normal. And if that's who you are, if you're a dentist and you love being a dentist and you're willing and able to let go of the rest of the stuff, as long as you're getting input from your leadership team about how the business of your dental practice is going, by all means, consider doing it that way. Life's too short to be in a bunch of meetings you don't want.
Yeah, that's very, very powerful. And I think will resonate with a lot of dentists. Generally, when they're reaching that burnout stage, it's because they've been trying to sit in the visionary seat. They've been trying to be an integrator. They didn't know these
Both.
terms, and they're trying to be the dentist. And so
Fun.
they're at that burnout stage. So this is huge. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I
hard
often
to
talk
ride 3 horses with one rear end. So
off,
you got to be careful.
Yeah.
often with the dentist is I say, look, they have to wear typically 2 hats, and 3 is too much. So 2 is being the producer, and the second is being the visionary or embracing or working on it. And I believe that there are those that are more natural visionaries and those that you can
Yeah.
train the skills and be a facsimile of a visionary because your team needs it, because you did find it. Like my father, that's how I got into dentistry, is I helped turn around his practice, but he still had a vision. He's not a visionary. He's an artist, but he still saw in his mind. And often artists have a vision, so you don't have to
Of
overcomplicate it.
course.
And that's where coaching helps to supplement and train and improve those capabilities. And I think what's really missing is the integrating, because they're integrating because they're managing their managers because they don't trust they can be done. But when you have an integrator,
Yeah.
everything's taken care of. So if a dentist, all they have to do is set the vision and motivate, and be a dentist, and even can delegate to a good integrator some of the responsibilities of the visionary, that can work too.
Yeah. Well, when the owner of the organization isn't sitting in the visionary seat, and we talk about the structure of the leadership team, a very common conversation we have is, if we're going to be an integrator driven business on behalf of the owner, who's going to do all the stuff the person who owned the visionary seat would be accountable for if we had one that was willing to work hard to be great at that job? And so in that conversation, often culture goes to the integrator seat or the head of HR, depending on the size of the organization. Big ideas might go to the head of marketing or sales. We just, creative problem solving might go to the head of ops. Who knows,
Because I
right?
think you've
But
mentioned
that's
before, and in your books, Peyton, you mentioned that you can run a very successful organization without a visionary. An integrator can work, but you're separating the integrator
that is
facets.
correct. That's correct. And what Mark Winters and Gino Wickman say in Rocket Fuel is, they say that is true. Most visionary driven businesses will grow faster and achieve more than integrators tend to be maximizers and optimizers, tweaking things to get a little bit more profitable, a little bit steadier, more consistent results. Visionaries tend to make bolder moves. Again, I'm not saying Shelley is incapable of making bold, game-changing moves, or Alex is incapable of getting in the trenches when he needs to get in the trenches. I'm just saying that's what the tendency is. But yeah, I work with numerous integrator-driven organizations, and the vision is coming from the other members of the leadership team. Occasionally, an ownership group or a board is providing a vision. A PE or a VC firm can play that role. You just need to make sure there's clear accountability for where growth is coming from. And that's really the discovery. Like what you said about your father, Alex, what I would say is, the reason so many small businesses led by a practitioner, somebody who's good at something and passionate about something, flatline or fail, is because it's very difficult to grow or scale a business without a great leadership team. And a teeny little business with 10 people in it is kind of like a pee-wee football team, where the 2 or 3 great athletes you have play all the important positions on offense, defense, and special teams. But when you get to be 50 or 100 or 250 people, you need specialists. You need people who are great at visionary, great at integrator, great at marketing and sales, great at operations, great at back office, finance and accounting stuff. That's what ends up happening. And so what you did when you went into your father's business is you brought that holistic view of what this business needs to bear. And then you started building those pieces parts in that practice to make sure it could grow to whatever size you scaled. Whereas a lot of dentists will say, oh my God, whenever I get to more than 9 people, it's time to stop growing because my maximum tolerance for humanity is 9 people. And for the record, I totally get that feeling. But that's the choice your listeners have to make is if I want to grow and scale this business, what seat am I going to be happiest and most effective in? And it probably isn't integrator. It might be dentist. It might be visionary. It might be owner's box. I don't know.
It's interesting. And I have to like kind of think about my father's practice. Maybe I acted as like a co-visionary with him because I knew the overall thing, but I was speaking on his behalf to spread that out. And then having Heather kind of be somewhat of an integrator, but more of a tactician, building that business. Now, interesting story. I went to a mastermind. I do a mastermind. We have a mastermind at All Star for our dentists, but I also have my own mastermind group. And Heather comes with me, and we're talking about all these ideas. And Heather's having so much fun. And we're on the plane. She's like, "I want to be acknowledged as a visionary too." And I'm not going to have a fight with my wife. I mean, happy life, right? So I say, "Okay, let me go edit the chart." I'm listening to Rocket Fuel on the way there, and I'm like, "Let me edit the accountability chart. I'm going to put you right here as co-visionary." And then she starts reading Rocket Fuel. She's reading the book. And she turns to me after the first chapter. She says, "I'm not a visionary, am I?" I says, "No."
Yeah.
Because she's reading and says, "I don't want to do any of that stuff." She just wanted recognition. She's actually happiest. She was taking on the role as integrator and hating it. Once we got, now Shelly's here, they're best. Shelly says, "Alex, Heather, I like you, Alex. I love Heather." So that was, she made very clear. And Heather and them are besties because Heather is a great tactician. She's amazing at taking care of the clients, and she embodies the vision more than anybody. But she doesn't want to manage or deal with these things. She doesn't want to have to also hold people accountable or do. But she's happy, and so she's able to be the tactician and loving it. And this is very, because she's a co-owner. So in a practice, if you have a partnership, you may have one partner that may be better to be the visionary, and the other partner can very happily just be a tactician and owner of the business.
That's right.
And that's fine.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, I think in order to embrace this thing, you have to kind of let go of your ego a little bit and not feel as though unless your name is the top one on the chart, you're not relevant. Okay, every seat on an accountability chart in a company running on EOS is vital. The person who greets people walking through the front door is vital. The janitor is vital. We're trying to match what the business needs to your passions, skills, and experiences. Period. And you deserve, as an employee of any business, whether you're an owner or not, you deserve to spend 80 to 90% of your time, maybe more, in roles that you're hitting out of the park every day and in general enjoy doing. You're going to have bad days, right? Like, I love working with my clients. There are some session days where I go home at the end of the day, I'm like, man, that was a slog. That doesn't mean I don't love what I do. It just means that not every day is perfect. But that's what every one of the people listening to this podcast need to hear is life is too short to spend all your time, expecting you can teach yourself to be great at stuff you weren't put on the planet to be great at. It's a waste of time.
I like what you said about ego, because I think this is so important. And ego being false sense or the need to, the title, the power, and things like that. I think, so I can give an example with dentists and with ourselves at All Star. I really appreciate the humility that we have. We'll put the opposite of ego, in that when I'm visionary, it isn't, yes, I have a lot of influence, but I also set it up that, look, this is my job as ideas. Even today, I'm going to push, I'm going to say some wacky things, some, bombastic things, but know that it's always going to be brought back by the team. And the integrator is, and I'll say these things, and we have, she's the highest integrator, Shelly, but we have other integrators in there as well, but they'll all go, they get it, and they'll back it off a little bit respectfully. And so And then also making sure in the books and what you also talk about, and you mentioned last time, make sure you praise your integrators so much, because the amount of work that they do, it's unbelievable. And
Yeah.
Shelley, what she does for this organization, and the artists too, like Heather, always praise them. Very important. So I think, like, in terms of that book, Rocket Fuel, I see, like, I'm happy when Shelley and I have a little bit of irritation. Sometimes we get irritated, but never, problems, because there's a lot of respect, because we know that irritation's good, because we are different, and we are moving some things
Yeah.
along, but we understand. And I think that's very important. And so to dentists have to watch that ego. I'm the dentist. I'm the boss. I'm this well-educated. No, you're visionary. That's the goal we're looking to coach you to be. But in order to allow an integrator to be successful in your business or to work with you, you're going to have to be able to be open to ideas of how he or she is going to be running. Because I say they run the business. I don't. Go ahead, Peyton.
Yeah. The key mistake that I see made around that, Alex, is hiring someone in whom you don't have enough confidence to let them make those decisions. Okay. So remember, the integrator is the person accountable for executing on whatever vision and plan we have for this business, so we maximize its value creation, growth rate, consistency, ease of management, etc. That's the integrator's job. When you put somebody in that seat, it's important to hire somebody who's so good at that, in your view, either because you've worked with them before or because of they're heavily credentialed and other people who they've worked for speak highly of their skills, where when you find yourself arguing with them, you stop yourself about halfway through the conversation and say, why am I arguing with Shelley about how to execute on this thing? I'm the idea guy. What I winning this debate is actually losing this debate, because
I've noticed that. Yeah.
what happens, Alex, is that if she gives in to you, then it's your way, and she isn't really accountable anymore. She's doing it the way you wanted it to be done. You're paying her to be accountable, so let her win the argument. Okay?
And she's right most of the
Trust
time.
that
All the time.
yeah, most of the time she is, but trust her. But here's the key. The right integrator, when they get a month or a week or a quarter into executing on their way of executing on something, and they start to feel like maybe you were right all along, great integrators are like, oh my God, I got to bring this to Alex's attention right away, because he was right. And it's painful, Shelley. You have to admit, it's painful to admit he's right when you had an argument about something.
Yep.
We're human. Okay. But that's what great integrators do. We're not keeping score. There's no tally sheet. There are no demerits. Okay. We're running a business. We're going to make mistakes from time to time. But if you want someone to take responsibility for execution in your business, then you have to also give them authority to make decisions around how we're going to execute.
Shelley, I
I
want to
think
see if you
that's
had any
what's helped
questions.
me to be, yeah, I was just going to say that right there is one of the things that's helped me as an integrator, which I did not know that I was for a long time in the practice, was allowing other people to come up with ideas as well, and then to allow them to take action within that. And they do it until they make it work, because it was their idea,
Yeah.
which a lot of times helps. Obviously, you're overseeing it, you're directing and helping to push people toward the right decision to get the result that you're looking for. But being that integrator is huge, and it's something that, like I said, I never knew that I had been in that seat for as long as I had until I read the book. But I agree with the visionary having all of these ideas, and then the integrator feeling like, oh my gosh, I need to make all of these happen. And so understanding your visionary and knowing some of these ideas, they just need to work through first.
Yeah.
And then you decide which ones are the ideas that you're actually going to implement. And I learned that the hard way with Alex early on. And I was trying to get everything that he said done. And then he'd come back the next day and he'd say, what are you talking about? And I said, yesterday you told me this is what you wanted to do. I spent like 4 hours making it happen. He's like, oh, well, I changed my mind.
Yeah.
I'm like, ooh, okay. So it's one of those want to get it done attitudes, but understanding and making sure that the integrator and the visionary are on the exact same page with open communication has been extremely powerful for Alex and myself.
That's the power of the issues list. The issues list is kind of mother's little helper for a integrator. And when we don't have the bandwidth to execute on all the ideas, we put the least immediate needs on the issues list. And my favorite moment in a quarterly session, especially with a brand new client, this happens a lot, is, we're 2 or 3 quarters in to implementing EOS, and I'm reading their long-term issues list off the VTO, which in many cases early in the journey, they haven't looked at enough during the quarter. And I'm reading these things and I'm saying, is this still an issue? And the clients are saying to me, what does that mean, Peyton? Like I'm somehow going to remember what it means. I haven't seen them in 90 days. And when you forget what an issue is, that's the classic definition of definitely not an issue.
That's where we started putting initials after them on our IDS.
No, don't do that.
Don't do that.
I want you to forget what the issue is, because then you cross it off, solve it. Trust that when the person has the same idea again 6 months from now, they'll put it back on the issues list. And the scary part about this, if you don't do that, is you'll have, especially visionaries, will put the same thing on the issues list 3 different times with 3 different labels and won't remember what any of the 3
That's
things
true. That's so true.
Really are.
So true. That's why we started putting it there, because I say, Alex, you told me to put that on the IDS, and he'd say,
no, just trust.
What was it?
No, you're just lengthening that unfruitful conversation. Get those initials off of there. My humble opinion.
Will do.
Now, the big thing here, I mean, these are 2 huge issues. One is recognizing the visionary, embracing the visionary role, whether you're natural at it or not. It can be trained, and especially if you're the founder, you're going to have some feeling. Let's not overcomplicate it. You're going to have some feeling. You don't have to get an MBA for that. You have a feeling this is your baby, right? And you have like my father had a vision to provide amazing care, service, high quality. He had specialists. I was talking to my mother the other day. They designed their office a certain way so it would flow this way. I mean, they had an idea what they wanted to do, and most dentists do. It's just embracing that fully, and because you're a dentist and you're so specialized, is getting the training. We do a lot of that in terms of the business training and phone skills and practice management. EOS is amazing. Paton and his team are great coaches to help support that. Now, that's one aspect. Then it's the integrator, because I said before, we often think my father had difficulty because he had an office manager that was not an integrator. And sometimes we think, okay, because of the title they are. So how do we find these integrators? That's a big question I have. I want an integrator. We just had in our message board today, one of our clients was like, I need an integrator. How do I hire for an integrator? And we have a hiring service to help dental offices hire. And so we're like, okay, we can help you with that. And we look for traits, but how do you find an integrator?
Yeah, I mean, integrators come from all sectors of the business. I've seen people who were sales and marketing professionals elevate successfully into the integrator seat. I've seen operators elevate into the integrator seat. That's probably the most common background. And I've seen people in the finance seat, or division elevate into the integrator seat. So there is no sort of career. The integrators are great builders of teams and establishers and maintainers of effective processes. They take tremendous pride in getting consistently exceptional results. So when you are looking for an integrator, you are looking for people who love doing those 3 things and have a history of being great at it in whatever role they've served and in whatever type of business they've served in. I don't know what your track record of success is pulling somebody into a dental business from outside the dental business, but I've found that sometimes technical expertise is a bad attribute for an integrator because they tend to get sucked into the technical weeds a lot more than they should, as opposed to being full-time leaders and managers.
My father promoted a superstar assistant, his best assistant ever, because she wanted to be office manager and wasn't great at it, but she was an amazing assistant. And I think, because it's maybe it's a role that's you sit behind a desk, you're not, I don't know what the reasoning is, maybe more pay, but I think instead of looking, this is what you guys do great at EOS, throw away titles. We're looking for attributes. What Peyton just said, those are the areas that you want to qualify and look around. And I do believe, I think even in dentistry, you don't need to have an integrator that knows dentistry. They'll figure it out. They're bright. They have to have the mind, the way they think, the way they, and their attitude.
They're analytical, decisive, collaborative, good at collaborating, doesn't wait around for consensus, kind of a ready, aim, fire mentality versus ready, aim, or ready, fire. Oh my God, I think I just killed somebody. I believe assessment tools can be very effective. I've got a lot of clients using Culture Index, Predictive Index, Working Geniuses, Pat Lynch. We use Colby a lot. So think of the job it is you're expecting someone to do and find someone whose experience, skill sets, and passions align with what you're asking them to do is the short answer. Work in your network. And then I wanted to go back to one thing you said earlier about your father, and he, didn't feel like maybe he was a visionary, or he would say, what you said is he had a vision of building a particular kind of dental practice where astounding levels of care were the way. So what I would have said to your father, if we were talking about this way back as you were entering to help him out, is I would have said, what are all, besides just practicing dentistry, what are all the activities you could engage in on behalf of this business to build a business that's widely known as the best at that? And he might have rattled off a list like networking with other dentists who are just getting out of dental school so that they want to come to work for me. But only the best of the best. Maybe I need to network with other dentistry school teachers so that they send me all their best candidates because I know they're this kind of person, right? Like there's a million things on the list of, and here's what the real reason visionaries don't recognize they're visionaries is because they're so gall darn busy with non-visionary shit, pardon my French, that they don't feel like they're ever going to have the luxury of doing all the things. But you got to say to a visionary, if you could write your job description and love every minute you spend working on behalf of this business, what would your job description say? And I'm guessing your dad could have given us a list of those things.
Yeah. And I think also in hearing you, like he, at that time, and even his personality would be very difficult. But I think that's where coaching is so important, because you would have brought out, because he doesn't like to network. He's not extroverted like that. He's not a great, but even though he isn't now, but what if this is the power of compounding, of working little by little. He would have been terrible strategist or business person. But if he had a coach that worked with him little by little on, because we do some leadership coaching as well. I know you guys do. And if it's not going to be overnight. We're changing conditioning, but it doesn't mean, even if you're a terrible business person and at the start and strategist, but you still could be a visionary. You have a vision.
Yeah. If that's what you want. If what you want, you have
to work at it.
If what you want is to grow this thing that you don't already have, and you're passionate about that, you will engage in those activities because you want to drive to achieving this thing. And if you're lacking that drive, that's fine. There's nothing at all wrong with running a 10-person dental practice.
Nothing wrong.
And serving your patients well, and being a great employer, and being a stalwart of your community, and that's a perfectly rewarding life. But if what you want is bigger than the thing you've got now, or different than the thing you've got now, and you're driven to go get that, whatever barriers you have to achieving that vision, will go away as long as we don't ask you to spend lots and lots of time doing stuff you're never going to like and you're never going to be good at.
That's a good point.
That's all.
And I think even a practice so our practices typically are between, we were doing some study, between 1.5 and 3 million. We have bigger ones too, certainly, and they get this concept a little better. But even at that 1.5, 3 million, you'd be very profitable. And often it can be done better, meaning when you have the right integrator, now all you're doing is visionary stuff and dentistry. You're not integrating, you're not worrying. That's very doable. And it's interesting too, it's all about having intention, because Shelly came on board. I did not know she was an integrator. I did not call myself a visionary. And I got a side thing about that, because we still don't call myself a visionary. I want to talk about that. That's the last another question I had, but make sure I don't forget that one. But the thing about this is there was no intention. I didn't, if I now knew what I knew, I would go, whoa, that's an integrator. Because subsequent to Shelly, we've brought on another integrator, a couple. We have one in our hiring service. And you're like, these are integrators. Crap. And you see them and you're more intentional. So I think knowing this and being very clear and working through it, you're intentional. Now, here's the question. So Shelly's integrator. We're struggling with visionary, of me saying I'm visionary, because that's not like in the company I'm visionary, but to the dentists that come to talk to me, I have I say I'm founder and CEO, and I think they get that, but I say I'm visionary. Like, what are you schmuck? You know, like you're visionary. Like, you know, you're telling you're such as I'm the visionary. Ooh, you know, like
you could put schmuck on your business.
I could,
card.
And at least it would be more telling. It'd be more telling. They knew what they're getting into.
Yeah.
It's a great thing.
This used to be a much more frequent conversation when people actually had or used business cards. So,
true.
You know, it's so funny that you're asking. So first of all, call yourself whatever you want. A founder and CEO is very common for a visionary. If you're uncomfortable with visionary, that's fine. I do a regular dinner with visionaries, and then I also do a regular dinner with integrators. And I had my integrator dinner just last week. And this subject came up. What do you put on your business card? And what won the day is one of my clients said, my life has been infinitely better since I changed my title to integrator. Because nobody ever calls wanting to sell us something, asking to speak with the integrator. They ask for the president, the COO, the CEO,
so it's like, I'm changing my title.
blah, blah, blah. And everybody was like, oh my God, I'm changing my title right away.
That's fantastic.
So I've got integrators who are chiefs of staff, general managers, presidents, chief operating officers. It's all over the board. And visionaries, you know, when I was the visionary for EOS Worldwide, I called myself a visionary, but in the legal documents and, you know, when business media was involved, it was CEO.
Okay.
So, you know, it is what it is.
And you teach the stuff. You got to say visionary. So, Paton, I could go. We could talk for hours and hours and hours. It is such a blessing and honor to have. Wow, the former visionary and CEO of EOS Worldwide. I mean, I hear everywhere we're talking about it's EOS. I'm not saying we're the first to this. Far from it. It's a very popular framework and very popular book series, including your books. And so I'm so happy to have you on this program. If our listeners want to learn more about you or EOS, what are some good resources or places to go?
Yeah, so the first place to start is EOSworldwide.com. We built that site 100 years ago to be the one place where you can find books, videos, access to people like me, professional EOS implementers. It's the right place to start. And then the other thing I always say when I'm on a podcast is I'm genuinely enthused about helping the people who own and run entrepreneurial companies. So if somebody's listening to this and they have a question or they're stuck with something and they want to talk to somebody, you'll find my information on the show notes and you can find me through the EOS Worldwide website. Please feel free to reach out to me. I'm not too busy to help. I genuinely want you to get everything you want from your business.
Wow. Thank you so much, Paton. Thank you, Shelley, the Integrator, for being on a call here. And remember to follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, and get the episodes as they are released. Share with your friends. And until next time, go out there and be an all-star.